Here we are, and I wanted to discuss, of course, the alt-right. That is where, so Brian and I talking about this Friday because we've been involved in that. I have specifically. I released a series of videos over the last few weeks up until the election, talking about the alt-right, talking about trying to prevent World War III with Russia, and talking about how they're demonizing this alt-right. Of course, Hillary brought it up in a speech not too long ago. It was a couple months ago, talking about the danger of the alt-right, and specifically going after like Milo Yiannopoulos of Breitbart, or attacking Alex Jones. This is this new movement, this alt-right, and then I just kind of use that as I've been using that quite frequently. I made a video about it trying to differentiate, because the problem is that the left, this term has now evolved from, Breitbart and, InfoWars and, who are some like Mike Cernovich, let's try to think of some of these, Stefan Molyneux, some of these big names that were all kind of lumped together. And I guess I kind of associate as alt-right myself in the old term. Now, I guess I'll explain the difference here. I'll get there. And I am somebody who is born and raised a Democrat. I've always considered myself to be a liberal person. I've never really considered myself a conservative, and not until I got on board with kind of the Ron Paul movement, where I would kind of associate loosely with the Republicans. But I consider myself, I guess you could say, a left. I've never considered myself right or conservative in any kind of way, but alt-right, as opposed to the left, this far left, this radical left, because I could kind of still to this day, I could very easily identify myself as a Jefferson Democrat, a JFK type of Democrat, but not the the FDR, not the far left, the socialists, the people, the Obama, the Hillarys, these Nancy Pelosi's. We're going to talk about the Democratic leadership coming up. Harry Reid. These people have gone way too far left. And then the option has been, going for Bernie and just being, full-blown socialist. I don't associate with that at all. I'm kind of somewhere between libertarian and Green Party. So I don't really know exactly where to put myself on this political spectrum. But what I do know is that I am, to the right of whatever this version of the left is. But at the same time, I am opposed to the old right, these old guard, the old neocons, the Bill Kristols, the Dick Cheneys, the Bush family, the warmongering neocons. I have been, at war with these people, informational war, for a long time. I hated the Bush administration during the 2000s. But, I couldn't really get on. I was happy to see Obama win. That's a long story. Of course, he turned out to be far worse than I ever could have imagined. But whatever, I'm not here to go after the lame duck right now. I think that's over. But just to, differentiate myself. So that's where I see the term alt-right. Now, unfortunately, the term alt-right has been turned into a white nationalist movement. And of course, like I said, this term has evolved. At first, it was, it was Milo, it was Pepe the Frog, and it was the InfoWars crew and Breitbart, and then, Steve Bannon, because he's going to be one of the top guys for Donald Trump, basically. I don't know, kind of like a right-hand man. And I think it's a good choice. But I mean, they're really, going after him. They're smearing him as he's a racist, or he's a misogynist. He's he's anti-Semitic. He's this. He's that. He's alt-right, and it's code now for white supremacy and this and that, and that's totally not what people were viewing it as. But that is what it has been turned into. So the media, I guess, and has done this intentionally. This is to smear their opponents. And it's not cool. And but it's understandable. I get where they're coming from. It's dirty, but there is something to it, because the alt-right movement, I guess, was coined by a white nationalist by the name of Richard Spencer, who, oddly enough, Brian and I, we met Richard Spencer when we were in Cleveland. And in fact, I posted the video Friday because we were in Cleveland during the RNC, and we went down to one of the nights we were there. We heard that Milo Yiannopoulos was going to be hosting a rally for Breitbart called Gays for Trump. And then it also ended up, he got banned from Twitter. And so it ended up also being kind of a rally for, free speech, I guess, in a way. And so we wound up at, I believe it was Cleveland State University. And we did a little bit on the street. We wanted to talk to the people out there. We're looking kind of, for gay people that were in support of Trump, because, to get their, the reasoning behind it, because we wanted to hit that angle of how the left, they want to be the party of, the minorities and such. They're this great humanitarian party. They love everybody. And it's just the crazy Republicans. They're all, white racists, whatever. But, it's not true. And so we talked to some of these people out there who were, to be gay. And some of them were, and a lot of them didn't want to be on camera. And one of the people we spoke to was Richard Spencer, who is not gay, but we, used this video footage because, he was a well-spoken, intelligent guy, and he would kind of spoke on their behalf. And it's kind of funny in the sense that, I just assumed he was gay because I guess that's what the angle that we were going for. So I guess you could say we cheated a little bit by using him as a gay person, even though he really wasn't. But one of the odd parts of this was he introduced himself. We only did about a 2-minute interview, and I just posted the whole thing finally in its entirety Friday, so that's how I know that it was that short. It was just meant to be a man on the street. It was, why do you support gays for Trump? Blah blah blah. And you can, it's a really good video. You guys should, check it out on our RNC documentary that we put together in Cleveland. We didn't do that separately, but it's just kind of incorporated into a chapter. I think it's chapter 5, but it should be easy to find if you can. We keep changing the title around the RNC doc, but anyway. One of the original clips that was in this doc was, Richard Spencer, and he introduced himself. He says, "My name is Richard Spencer, and I'm with the National Policy Institute." But I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what that organization was, and but he did say he was a supposed founder, leader of the alt-right. But I removed this whole clip because I later found out who he was. It was actually during this process of editing when at some point I was just randomly on Twitter and I linked to some article, I think it was on Huffington Post or something, and it was talking about how, Richard Spencer was this, white supremacist leader, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, that name sounds familiar. And lo and behold, I went back and I looked and I was like, at that video footage, and I'm like, oh my God, that's him. We interviewed him and didn't know who he was. So I kept his footage in there because I liked, he was, articulate, he was smart, and he made, it was good footage, and I used it. But after I realized who he was, I removed the part where he introduced himself and his organization, because I didn't want to be affiliated with that anyway. But at the same time, I'm not going to just, outright censor everything he said. So I did release the video footage Friday, finally that 2 minute clip, and I don't have anything personal against the guy. I don't, I think he's got an old world of thinking. He's, like you said, he's smart, but he's somebody. I think he's, born and raised. He lives in Wyoming somewhere. And there's no disrespect to people in Wyoming, but I mean, it's hard. It's not exactly like a culturally, rich and diverse area full of different opinions and such. Like I can understand where he could, be lost in this world and be ignorant to some of these things, and but it's just the whole idea of this racist this white nationalism, the idea that we're gonna somehow export all people of color out of the United States. I mean, I don't get where this line of thinking comes from. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's ridiculous, and we'll be happy to have the conversation with any of these people. I don't know how they. I don't know where they come up with the idea that people are gonna. This idea is gonna catch on. It's the 21st century, and now we're actually really going to just segregate ourselves, that we can't get along. We've tried for so long, and humans just can't get along because we're different colors or what have you. I mean, this is just sad. This is not the way we build a better civilization and go towards the future. Regardless, but I mean, I'll be fascinated to have this discussion if necessary. The point is, I don't want to be lumped in with these people. These are the alt-right, and I guess they're entitled to keep it. And now the media has taken it and smeared it. I made a video last week, maybe Tuesday or something, discussing what I thought the alt-right was, and I already gave you my interpretation earlier, but you can still go check that out if you want. Explaining what I think it is, and part of the reason I did that is because of all these videos I made before the election, where I made several references to the alt-right, and I want to make sure I differentiate. I'm not speaking alt-right as in white nationalist movement. I'm speaking alt-right as opposed to the radical left and the neocons. Totally different things, and I don't want to be lumped in with that. That's totally unfair. So I guess that's the end of the alt-right, as it were. In fact, I had somebody, I guess is one of the founders or leaders of the alt-right, mentioned something to me on Twitter, how it's always been this white nationalist movement, and, I was the one that was wrong, and maybe I am. But, I guess that's the end of it, because that white nationalist part of it isn't going to catch on. And Donald Trump has already disavowed it. That's not the way humanity is going forward into the future. So you guys can keep it. And I told him, enjoy your fade into obscurity, because that's all it's going to be. And with that, let's move on to something else.